This has to be the craziest situation of instant karma I have ever seen, and it has to do with influencers knowingly promoting scam groups, and then when it comes time for them to get paid, they come crying to the internet because the scam group that they were promoting and trying to scam their followers with didn't end up paying them and ultimately scammed them as well. And this whole situation is honestly really crazy, and it's not something that's just isolated to one specific person or group or anything like that. This is something that is very widespread across the various scamming networks, and I want to make a video talking about it because I actually infiltrated one of these servers and I have some tea to share. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of, the things that I discovered and want to share with you guys, I do want to be very clear. This video is not directed at any specific group, company, website, service, or influencer, okay? This is more so a generalized video based on patterns that I have seen, and I'm going to vaguely reference different videos. However, I am not naming influencers, I'm not naming companies, because although it may be against TOS, there are some of these groups that are legitimate and do actually provide the services that they're claiming to provide to you, which I'll get into in a second here, but the majority of them, I would err on the side, are scams. And the unfortunate part is that a lot of influencers are recruited into advertising these knowing that they're scams, but the money that they're promised is so much that they honestly just don't care and promote these scams anyways, therefore jeopardizing their audience's safety for a couple extra dollars, which I know people are in all sorts of different economic situations, so I'm not trying to be too hypercritical of this, but it's just really dishonest. And at the end of the day, I feel like selling out your morals for a little bit of money, I don't know, like you have to be in a really bad financial situation for that to be considered. But regardless, I am very purposefully not naming names because I don't want anybody getting harassed. So please guys, don't be name piling or dropping people's names in the comment section below. We don't need that, okay? So with that all out of the way, essentially, I was scrolling on TikTok and I started to come across like this niche, I guess, on TikTok of influencers, quote unquote, exposing past groups that they've worked with. And I have to very quickly kind of identify the two things we're talking about here so that you guys can actually understand. So groups in this situation are websites or third-party services, platforms, whatever, that basically claim to provide services or items from popular Roblox games in exchange for USD. Now, a lot of these websites will revolve around like the top games like Dress to Impress, Adopt Me, Murder Mystery 2, World High, etc. So games where there is some sort of like rarity system or trading feature, these services will claim to provide cheaper alternatives than if you were to buy this stuff in Roblox. They'll say, hey, we'll actually, example, trade you this super cool pet in Adopt Me with a bot account if you pay us $25. And then you do payment through like PayPal or Zelle or through the website, whatever it might be. And then basically it's supposed to be that a bot will join you in Adopt Me and give you the item. Now, although some of these things are legitimate, there's a couple core issues right to get off the bat here. Is that number one, this is against Roblox's terms of service. And the reason is because people will oftentimes ignore that, go and purchase this stuff, which then screws over the developers of the game, the people who make the game so that they get less money, and it ultimately causes players to potentially get poisoned items through these trades. Now, if you guys don't know what poisoned items are, they are items that are stolen from other players, either because the player was hacked or they were scammed, etc. And typically in these situations, when this stuff happens, the people who are actually involved in the scam sometimes do get scammed as well, and then their items further go into the scam loop. Now, you guys may not understand why it's problematic, but you have to think and take a step back sometimes and think, why would a website or service have an infinite amount of this really rare pet in Adopt Me, or have an infinite amount of this really rare knife in Murder Mystery 2? Because they're scamming it, okay? These items don't just magically appear in someone's inventory, they have to actively go out and get them, and you have to understand that people just don't have like endless amounts of inventory. They're getting that inventory from somewhere, and typically it's from scamming other people. Maybe the game itself or the group itself isn't scamming people, but they're typically purchasing these items for cheap off somebody else, and then selling them on their website, platform, whatever, for a discounted price or a cheaper price than what it would be in game, so that way incentivizes people to spend real money. But the issue is, if the game catches you with those items, they'll acknowledge that, hey, those items are stolen from Sally over here, you must be a scammer, and you could potentially get banned or get the item taken away from you, and then you just spent $25 on something you can't even use. So that's kind of like the whole problematic thing here. Now, when it comes to influencers and where influencers play into this, influencers are oftentimes sent emails or messages from these games or groups to say, hey, you make content for Adopt Me, well, I own a website that sells Adopt Me pets for really cheap, or I own a Murder Mystery 2 website that sells like Murder Mystery 2 weapons for cheap. And they'll say, hey, I want you to advertise this, whether that be through text popping up in your YouTube short, or you saying, hey guys, I got my dream item, and then advertising our website. We want you to do this. And for every couple views, every 1,000 views, we'll pay you this much money. And the amount of money varies by how many subscribers you have, how dedicated your fan base is, stuff like that. An example could be if you had someone, which Flamingo does not do this, but if you have someone like Flamingo who is potentially advertising a scam website, Flamingo would get paid hundreds of dollars for thousands of views because his fan base is incredibly loyal. Compared to somebody who maybe doesn't have a very loyal fan base, we could say someone with 500 subscribers, they might get paid like 50 cents or $1 per 1,000 views. So It's kind of a sliding scale based on your ability to influence others. And the unfortunate aspect of this is that they oftentimes play on the trust that the audience has with a specific influencer to scam them. And that's why they see influencers with a loyal follower base as being more profitable than just random people off the street, right? So with that in mind, essentially they'll reach out to you through email or through Discord or whatever. And I've gotten a lot of these inquiries, a lot, because obviously I make commentary videos. And so one of the cornerstones of my channel is trust and people trusting, what I'm saying as the truth, or people trusting that I'm giving my honest opinion, stuff like that. And if I don't know if something's the truth, I'll obviously state that, but that's kind of where trust plays into commentary. And that's why it's so important. And why oftentimes these scammer groups want to come and, hire people that use their voice or use expressive language and stuff like that, because they think you seem more human. So the ad will seem more realistic, if that makes sense. Now, essentially, again, I've been sent tons of these messages, ton of them. And I know personally from my personal experience that these are scams. I know they're not real. They don't work. A lot of the times maybe you will get the item, but it'll be poison. It's just not great, okay? And so I don't do this because I don't agree with it. That's not me trying to virtue signal. That's just me setting a boundary. I don't agree with these websites, so I would never advertise one, even if it was real. The thing, though, is that I really had wanted to make this video, and so somebody reached out to me and said, hey, Pommy, can you do an advertisement for this website? And I said, I can learn more about it. And I joined the Discord server just so I could make this video. And obviously I'm not going to use screenshots from that server because it's meant to be a private thing. And I'm not trying to dogpile anybody, but my goodness, the stuff I found out was insane. So essentially, in this server, there is a ton of different channels, and some of the channels feature basically example videos from other creators of here's how you can make an ad that doesn't tell your audience that it's an ad. Now, if you guys don't know, this is highly illegal. That's because there's something called the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, which is basically a body that typically regulates advertisements within North America, but sometimes can also branch out to other countries of the world. But essentially, they set standards for how you have to disclose an ad. And it is a very, very big deal to not disclose if you're being financially compensated for telling people something. That's why on TikTok and YouTube, there is a paid partnership or sponsorship tag that you can put on your videos if you're doing a sponsorship, because it is important to abide by the law. You have to label any video that you're making any sort of profit from by saying, hey, this is sponsored. Now, I think people sometimes get confused too, and they'll say, oh, well, I'm not getting paid to make this ad. They're giving me stuff. That's still technically a paid advertisement because you're getting something in exchange for what you're saying. And so in these situations, you have to say hashtag ad on the video or label the video as sponsored content. Otherwise, you're violating the law and you could be reported to the FTC and get a very hefty fine. And so the fact that these websites that are already sketchy in their own being are telling influencers how to make an ad not look like an ad so they can kind of try and sneak under the radar and trick players into thinking they're actually being like, guys, I use this all the time, instead of it being, hey guys, I advertise this. Would you guys like to go purchase it? Because obviously pretending that you're not advertising something is going to go over better with your audience. That's highly illegal. And these groups know it because they've had several run-ins with the FTC, and they actively encourage influencers who may not know better or may not recognize this as a scam to actively violate the law and to lie in their advertisements and pretend like they're not being sponsored. So that's the biggest thing right off the bat. The second thing was a channel for support. And I basically looked in this channel, and it was basically something along the lines of when influencers are posting these advertisement videos and getting backlash, they would post the comments of people getting upset with them, and would then send like these screenshots of the comments in this chat channel so that other channels in the same niche could preemptively go ahead and block those people from commenting on their channels, ultimately basically trying to silence anybody who calls them out for, hey, this is an undisclosed ad, or hey, you are actively promoting a scam website. And I remember specifically in 2020, the scam kind of niche of sponsorships was at an all-time high because these websites were like popping off. The whole like bots coming into games to trade you is still a very new thing. And there was a lot of influencers, specifically very big influencers promoting these scams. And I'm gonna be honest, there's one that I think she's an amazing influencer, but I'm gonna be honest, I was shocked that she never addressed it. And she never said, hey guys, sorry for promoting a scam, my bad. She just kind of like left the videos up but stopped posting in collaboration with them, even though she was making a ton of money off the sponsorships. And it was like, babe, what are you doing right now? But essentially, this brings me back to my main point, which has to do with influencers now turning against these websites and going online and basically trying to not even blackmail them, but I would just say like expose them. And there's been a couple of videos I've come across this week, and it's for a variety of different groups. So it seems like all these groups are kind of falling apart at the same time, which is honestly quite interesting. I'm not sure if maybe they're related. I have no idea. But essentially, I have seen a variety of videos of influencers being like, hey guys, so I was partnered with this website. And I did 13 advertisements in the span of 5 days, and my videos got 1,000,000 views, and they're supposed to pay me $1 per 1,000 views, and I never got my money. And they basically come to YouTube or TikTok, whatever platform, and there's this one person who was crying, and I get it. Sometimes they'll do advertisements because you really need the money, and I'm not trying to make assumptions about other people's financial situations because I get the economy's not great, but I feel like if you're desperate enough to make videos scamming kids, you're probably also, able to maybe go do a hobby or something that can make you money. Maybe crochet some plushies and sell them on the side. Go make a keychain and sell it. I don't know. Go see if anywhere in your neighborhood is hiring. Maybe you can shovel people's walks or brush off their walks for money, stuff like that. Like there's always other alternatives to making money. And I'm not trying to say that to sound privileged, but more so to say, you don't have to spend an astronomical amount of time spamming out, scam advertisements to make just a fraction of the amount of money you could make just doing a minimum wage job. And I'm trying to be, thoughtful here that minimum wage jobs aren't necessarily available everywhere because of, layoffs and stuff like that. So I'm trying to be understanding, hence why I gave, alternate ways to make money and stuff like that. But I just feel like if you have to stoop to a level of scamming kids to make money, and then come online and you have the audacity that after you've been scamming kids for several weeks to come online and cry victim and say, oh, guys, they never paid me. They scammed me. Babe, your past 30 videos have all been a blatant attempt to scam kids by number one, not disclosing that you're doing an ad, a paid sponsorship, which is against the FTC, but number two, actively lying to kids saying that these platforms or groups are 100% safe when they are not. They just aren't. And that's the truth. No group, game, website, etc. has an infinite amount of stock when it comes to ultra rare items in a specific game. Critical thinking skills here are none. How do you think they get that stuff? They're obviously not just pulling it out of their butt. They have to get it somehow. And these things, these people cannot just generate more items. I think people oftentimes try to use that. Oh, well, they just generate more stuff. They have hacks. They could just generate more. Babe, no. That's like saying, guys, I have a hack where I can generate more money. As soon as I reach into my wallet and grab my debit card and go to the bank and I put it in this silly machine, money just comes pouring out. I can just generate money. No, money comes from somewhere, just like how items come from somewhere. They always have to come from somewhere. And so the whole mentality of these people where they actually don't, disclose that they're doing an ad, then they do all these ads, get thousands of views, ultimately scamming hundreds of kids in the process, and then they have the audacity months later to not apologize for what they did, but instead come to YouTube and start crying and be like, guys, they scammed me, I didn't get my money, they owe me $500. Babe, they don't owe you $500. You owe your audience a lot of money for the money they've probably been scammed from because you're promoting a scam, and then to come back later and act like a victim, it's just crazy to me. When there's a difference between not knowing versus knowing, but as soon as an influencer posts one of these videos for one of these third-party websites, the comment sections are always filled with people being like, hey, you can actually do this, hey, this is actually a scam, whatever. And oftentimes ignore it. So if you're actively ignoring these comments, or you're aware that it's a scam, and as soon as you're in that Discord server, you see people be like, haha, I just scammed another person. The people in these Discord servers are honestly quite degenerate, and they'll actively make fun of the fact that they've scammed somebody. It's really weird, it's bizarre. Obviously I'm not in that server anymore because let's just say I think they found out I was not going to do sponsorships for them. Oops, my bad. I was kicked from it. But essentially, it's just a very interesting kind of situation where these people are actively taking advantage of their people. They know what they're doing is wrong. They know what they're doing is scamming. They know that there is no possible way for a game to just generate thousands of this really rare, Pet and Adopt Me, or thousands of this Knife and Murder Mystery 2 and just constantly sell it, right? They know it's against the terms of service. They know that they're not, abiding by the FTC or abiding by advertising regulations in their country, and yet they still have, again, the audacity to say, guys, feel bad for me. Yes, guys, I did scam you. Yes, guys, I did violate the law. And yes, I actively silenced you when you guys told me what I was doing was illegal, but hey, they didn't pay me my 500 buckaroos for scamming you. I'm a victim. No, babe, no, you're not. You know what I mean? But regardless, I obviously am not naming names for a very specific reason, but I want to share this in a video to just let you guys know to be very wary when you're, following influencers and interacting with their content. I do think and I hope that every influencer has, the goal of being, a kind person, a decent human being. But at the end of the day, there are some that for whatever reason, maybe it's financial, just a lack of moral decency, I don't know, that will actually promote scams. And although someone can have a large follower base, that does not mean that they're trustworthy and does not mean that what they're saying is honest or that they're following the law. So again, if anyone's ever trying to encourage you guys to purchase stuff from third-party platforms, regardless of whether or not it may be authentic or not, because again, some of them can be, my rule of thumb is just, if it's against Roblox's term of service, it's probably for a good reason, and I'm just not going to do it. So with that in mind, let me know your thoughts down below. Have you ever fallen for one of these? And if you did you actually get the items you purchased? Did they stay in your account? Did they get taken away? Did you get banned? I don't know. Because sometimes people fall into the radar and they do actually get a good deal. So I don't know. You guys can let me know down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!